Okay. So thank you for organizing this event and for putting me into the program. I'm afraid to say that I think I haven't seen so much people for one of my talks Saturday afternoon. So thank you, thank you, Darren. I'm not going to talk about robots, but about olive oil, butter, about consumption of particular goods. So it's a paper co-authored with Thierry Meyer and Eve Sira, and it's about market integration, convergence, and consumption patterns. So this is related to a bigger question, which is the effect of globalization and homogenization, and particular homogenization, of consumption patterns. And so if you go back 35 years ago, already you can find some scholars saying that the world's, say, tastes have become homogenized, and they pointed this global corporation that sells the same thing in the same way every way. So we can think about McDonald's, Coca-Colization, and today Walmart and GAFAs today. Okay, and this seems to be a concern for the population because globalization is seen everywhere, and raises concerns about foreign influence. For example, in this Pew survey in 2009, 69% of US citizens think their way of life must be protected against foreign influence. And this is what before Trump, right? In France, it's 59%, and in Turkey, 85%. But in a recent one, also in The Economist, in 2016, 62% of respondents on average, in 19 developed and emerging countries, agree on average that a country is stronger when its people have a shared and common culture than can be threatened by globalization. So a lot of people seems to be threatened by this foreign influence. But you may also say this may also apply to cultural minorities with integration within countries. You can think about Catalonia, for example, with a trade integration in Spain, maybe, or even in France also. Okay. Okay, but surprisingly, even if you take globalization, integration, or homogenization of consumption patterns, you find very little empirical evidence of the convergence in this needs and desires, despite a more globalized world. So the work is all this list, and I can show you also other papers. They point to persistent, spatially correlated, and heterogeneous taste, I would say, or heterogeneous consumption patterns within and between countries. Okay, so our question is not about globalization, more about integration, because we are going to estimate the effect of economic integration on the homogenization of consumption in France between two dates, so in the 70s and 2005, two different generations. And also we focus on food consumption. So why food? First, because we see different food cultures across social groups. So we can find like localized taste, localized preferences, and localized consumption as well. And also, it's probably, if you take culture, it's probably a fast-moving component of culture, food. So could lead to homogenization. For example, you find crêperie, which is a Brittany specialty in Marseille, or promotional restaurants in Lille, for example. Well, and also, we consume coffees, teas, which are products from abroad, right? And also, the food attributes are more stable than other products. So if you compare Apple, you can compare Apple in the 70s to Apples today, but not an iPhone, okay? So it should be obvious that food can be a good product to look at different dates. Okay.
Once you write apples versus iPhones, you should write apples with a small A versus apple with a capital A.
Maybe, yeah.
That'd be more to the point, I guess.
Yeah, but you get it, right? So you got it. So that's fine. Okay. Yeah, so it's a subtle one. Okay. So, but also, the question is, let me be a bit more specific, because we know that consumption choices, they're affected by economic environment, so they're affected by prices and income, and also affected by taste. So, and for the moment I said consumption and taste, but they're really two things different, okay? So, the first thing is, does integration only affect the economic environment? It's probably the first question. Because if you go back to this Stigler and Becker paper, they will say that our tastes are fixed. We have fixed preferences. We're born with those identical and fixed preferences. And so if we find in the data some differences in behavior, this means that we have to search for difference in prices or incomes to explain those, okay? So we have to work hard. And it could be that integration led to price conversions and also income per capita conversion. So if we want to say something about taste, we probably should work on how prices have changed and how income per capita have changed as well. But so the first bullet point is about preferences that are fixed. The second one is a literature where they tend to think that preference may be endogenized. And so market and other economic institutions do more than allocate goods and services. They also can influence the evolution of values and also the evolution of taste, okay? And so the question is controlling for price and income, do tastes converge? Okay, so this is basically the question we want to ask. So what we do, we take France as an example of deep integration. So between these two different dates, like 70s and 2005. And so because there is deep integration, because there is a fall in the cost of moving goods, of moving people, of moving IDs, and how does this affect the household food consumption between these two dates, okay? And to do this, we adopt a two-step methodology. First, we estimate a structural demand system, and this structural demand system will help us to control for prices and income. So the regional components of budget shares that cannot be explained by the vector of prices and income provides our measure of taste, okay? So we measure taste first, and then we use those taste estimates, and we try to explore the homogenization assumption and how integration affects homogenization. Okay, that's basically what we try to do. Okay, so what do we find? We find strong localized tastes within France, so, but a homogenization over time. And this homogenization is not only due to price or income conversion. So trying to show you that, in a sense, France becomes flatter, and this is due to integration. Just to think an idea like this about this strong localized taste, let me show you some map. This is the butter shares in fats consumption in France in the 70s. Okay, so here you will find Brittany, Normandy, where they overconsume butter compared to places in the south of France. Okay, and then what happens in 2005? So you see that this part here, those high shares that just disappeared, but you still find even today that tastes are localized. Okay. So if you do this for olive oil, you'll find the reverse. So let me show you an example of convergence over time. So this is not controlling for price or income changes, okay? It's just consumption shares. But so when you look at the difference or the growth rate on the initial share, what do you find is that you find when you have a high initial share of butter, like Rennes, for example, you have a low growth. And here you find Clermont-Ferrand, and here Marseille. Okay, so it seems to be convergence over time. And so you may say, okay, this is only health issues because there are campaigns against butter, and then we have to substitute something. But you see that even for some regions, départements, you'll find an increase in the growth of consumption of butter. But this is not, I do not control for prices and not control for income, so let me show you how I do it. I do this.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Given your co-author from the middle, Kéliméen, we would expect a paper on champagne.
Yeah.
That strong control on quantity, because there's lots of things that can happen within showing us, which could be like the
quality.
We invest in much better butter than those that were just still for them.
So this is an issue. So if
sorry, just in general, I have a general question that seems to come when you look at your paper is the question of taxonomies. How do you measure? How precise can you be in measuring exactly consumption and the different ways in which people could differentiate themselves even within within France and within localities.
Yeah, no, so this is an issue. So if the price of butter in the north and the south, but the butter is higher quality in the north, then what we'll find at the end of the day is a taste in the north, which is a quality effect and not a taste measure. So, but I will show you that we try to deal with this quality issue, given that there is a trade-off between can we go deeper into which type of good we take, and so empirically we probably can work with Apple on the different types of butter, but then the consumer theory and the demand will say probably you have to take account of the substitutions between the goods and the prices and so on and so forth. So it's not that easy to go deep on that. Yeah.
I was wondering, when you think about variety, is it the fact that goods are available or not, or is a strategy from the company? Because if you look library, books are there.
Yeah.
I wonder why you go to Barnes and Noble and you have 100 times the same book, because they think that they make money with the book and they don't present the other. It's not a question of inabilities.
So I will try also to control for this, but this also is something that it's hard to control for. But so you may have supply effects. Yeah.
Just, are you worried, or can you do anything about mean reversion? I mean,
in the convergence graph, you mean?
Yeah, so
yes.
If there are, everything is estimated with error, of course.
Yes.
So those errors are going to mean revert. That's going
Yes.
to create a convergence pattern.
Yeah. So it's also why I'm not at the end of the day showing you convergence controlling for price and income. I try to do something different, partly due to this point. But let me show you what I do exactly.
But anything that works with residuals is going to be somewhat subject to that.
Yes, yeah. And it's a kind of residual strategy that we have here. So
The only one you can use, but
yeah, so I have to think about this. Or trying to show you that we do something for this. Okay, so let me just give you a sketch of the model of what our ideas and how what we have in mind, some data and facts, and then the analysis of in the two steps. Okay, so first, if you imagine assume a non-integrated economy with some differences in endowments, for example, across regions like the north. So in the south, they have they have olive trees, and so Breton, they make butter the fight of choice instead of olive oil. And so consumption would be biased towards locally available goods, right? So this doesn't mean that tastes are biased, but taste would be biased and localized if we assume habit formation. For example, your adult taste favor what you consumed when you were a kid, and this consumption is biased towards the locally available goods. So this, at the end of the day, you will have a taste, localized taste, or if you assume also cultural transmission, Bézinet-Verdier, where the parents, they have a utility based on the consumption of the kids, so they also have an optimal incentive to pay a cost to transmit a culture. Okay, so then you have a localized taste. And what are the forces of convergence, of homogenization in this non-integrated economy? So integration may be one force, because you will increase trade, increase migration, moving ideas, people, and goods. And this may lead to homogenization, these two models. But you have also other forces, advertising, health campaigns, and also supply changes and the availability of goods or not may also impact this, and maybe concurrent factor concomitant to the deep integration. Okay, so we're trying to deal with this. I hope you will be convinced by the way we do this, but this will be the discussion. So let me say something about data and the facts. So we use French households budget surveys, which are designed for the analysis of living standards. So we have households expenditures, which are recorded. And what is nice is that we have some details, but which are probably available if you are using barcode data in 2005, but not in 1974. And we observe quantities and unit values also in the 70s. Okay? And also we have detailed information on social demographics and resources of households like income. Also, which is also interesting in this data set is that you can geolocalize the household. We have 1,000 cities in the 70s, 2,000, a bit more in the 2005. But then we do not use the city level. We use the department level, okay, so bigger area, which is, we think, the appropriate unit of analysis because this spatial organization was introduced after the French Revolution. So, yeah.
Do you have any data in between?
Yes, we have, yeah. But
you might be able to use that for dealing with measurement.
Yes.
For instance, if you were to look at, say, changes from 1990 to 2005,
yes.
an instrument with 1970s,
yes.
at least for classical measurement error, that would
yes,
deal
yes.
with the problem.
So the only problem is that we have expenditure, but not quantities in between. So we are trying for some products where we are sure that it's one quantity, like olive oil, a bottle of olive oil, or a pack of butter. In that case, it's easy to recover quantities and then to get prices. But we still are doing this for the moment because we do not observe quantities, unfortunately. But something that we should do. Okay, so let me say a word about the département, which is probably the good unit of analysis, because there is a clear econ motivation. So the size of the department was such that it would be possible for any point inside the department to reach the capital city and come back within 48 hours by horse. Okay, so today it's a bit easier, but we think that this is probably motivation, so why we can use department as the way of develop a separate taste from one department to the other. Okay, but as I show you in the map, you may also have correlation across departments. Yeah?
Why not commuting zones?
Yeah, so there's another problem in the 70s is that we have, so the cities, for some cities it's difficult to know which city it is exactly. For the small ones, we have information for the biggest ones, but for the small one, it could be different cities. It's probably my co-author because I'm saying something stupid. I don't know. Or no, it's not me. Okay, so it's why we. But it could be if it could be possible to do any kind of aggregation and any kind of regional level. You can do it at the clustering regions, for example, or department or commune, for example. It could be different. But we thought that it was interesting. So then we have a two-level demand. It's even three-level demand system because you allocate your budget to food and then to lodging and then to leisure. So within food, we consider 9 categories of food. And then we also, at the second level, we also consider various products within categories. And we have champagne. So we are safe. Okay. And also, I can show you if you want, for 2005, our data using survey barcode is really, we get the good numbers. That's nice. Okay, so first, let me say something about the convergence of consumption. So here's simple convergence plot. So we have the growth of the budget share on the initial budget share. Okay, so you can pick one category if you want. Don't be shy, yeah, alcohol. Okay. Okay, so you find that again, so high share, lower growth, lower share, higher growth. Okay, so but it's how it works also for dairy consumption, drinks, fats, fruit, grain. It works for all of them. Okay, so this can be due to price conversions, and so what we do is we get growth of real unit values on the initial real unit values in logs, and again. Can pick some, like alcohol. You'll find this probably it's not that clear here, but for others is. So we have this pattern. So this means that the consumption conversions can be only explained by price conversion. So it could be a bit boring story. And what we do also is that we show that there is income per capita conversions. So over time, you see that this is Paris. And also Ile-de-France, so the richer areas, they converge they have a lower growth rate than other departments. Okay, so this means that we observe consumption convergence, but also price convergence and income per capita convergence. So we really have to get rid of those. To say something about taste convergence.
So Jose, the pricing trends, they were not regulated, right?
I hope not. So they're well for bread. Yeah, for baguette, yes. For bread, yes. But
How come you cannot consume less than 1 liter per day?
just only. So it's why it's converging, because we are drinking much more now in some places. Okay. So let me go to the empirical analysis, otherwise Manuel will stop me. So the first is to, so first we want to control for prices and we want to control for income, okay? So we consider this two-level demand system, broad categories like meats, alcohol, and then various products within each category. And we use this almost ideal demand system at the broad and the product level. So this is a nice demand system because it's flexible in prices. So if I want to consume beef, I have to take care of the price elasticity of beef, but also the price elasticity of fish and also chicken and other products, right? So it's quite flexible. And it's non-homothetic, okay, because you see a convergence in income per capita, so you have to deal with this potentially non-homotheticity in demand. And so the regional component, so the département component of budget shares purged from the influence of price and income will provide a measure of taste, okay? And so here's the demand, so the budget share that we use. So for a given year, because we do this for 74 and 2005, the household H, so living in a CTC within a department, consumes the good G, so this will be beef, for example, within the category of meats, according to this equation. So SGH will be the household budget share on good G in the broad category B. So it will be the consumption of beef within a meat. Okay? Then prices. So this model is rich because you have the own price elasticity, or it to be semi-elasticity, but also the semi-elasticity of chicken and fish, right? But the problem is that if you use household prices, they are clearly endogenous. And so instead of doing this, and after we instrument those prices, but let me say that first we use the median price of the good in the CTC. Okay? So we think that median price will be robust to outliers, but they are also less contaminated by the quality effects mentioned by Francis that typically overstate the price response. Okay, so it's a way to deal with this. And then we have another control for quality later on. Okay, then the other big thing that we have to control for is the income part. Okay, so the budget that you allocate for meats. So this animal will be the household's real expenditure on this category meats. So using a linear price index. And we also instrument the real expenditure by the household total revenue. Okay? So it'll be controlling again for the endogeneity of the income. And we square also in some versions. Okay, then you may say that consumption is affected by prices, by income, but also by the size of the household, by the fraction of people by age group, by the occupation of the adult. So this will be a proxy, for example, for education, and the fact that some people some households may be more affected by health campaigns or marketing campaigns than others. So this control for this. We also introduce a kind of new variable in literature, which is the fraction of purchase by type of store. Because in the 70s, there is not so much big stores. You mainly use small retailers, and so we have to control for this. And in the 2005, we mainly buy our stuff in the big stores. And also we control for gender composition. And so the last element, this theta, is our department good fixed effect. And this will be our local demand shifter and our estimate of the taste at the department. So for each department and each good, okay?
was expecting to see some kind of measure of diversity.
Diversity, in what sense?
Well, in the sense that if we speak about homogeneous, heterogeneous is something relative. If you have one product, you cannot know if you add to variety, except if you have some kind of variety measure.
So the caveat is in 2005 you have the detail about, all the detail about the product, but not in the 70s. That's the problem. So we cannot say that this household is consuming this variety and this household is consuming this other variety. So in the data it will be butter, could be probably salt butter, but that's it. So it's why it's difficult to come with this. But yeah, probably. We think that also those controls may take care about the diversity. So for example, if you go to a big store, you will not the same availability that if you go to a small retailer or if you go to the market, for example. So you will not face the same supply, for instance. Or it could be that the occupation, which is related to education, but we can also introduce education directly. It's probably a better idea. And you do not consume the same product. So in the sense, it's a control for diversity or the type of varieties that you buy, but in an indirect way at the household level.
It's very easy to do. You just add an X, and then you have X log of X, that's entropy, and that's it.
Okay, so it's possible to do better, you mean? Okay. We can discuss about that. Okay, so about quickly about the identification strategy, So we need some variation within each department to identify the price, the income, and demographic effects. Also, you don't want the price variation driven by demand because this will be taste. Okay, so imagine that I'm a firm, I know that you like this type of beer, I can manipulate the prices, and so this will affect the shares. Okay, so you prefer, so what you want is supply shocks. Okay, so we use the median city prices as a proxy for the supply shocks, but another thing is use the Haussmann strategy. So we instrument median prices with prices in similar city, so in terms of same size bin, in non-contiguous departments, okay? Because the contiguous departments may be also affected by the same taste than you, but if you use non-contiguous department, maybe less, okay? And then this function should be common across France and well approximate by your functional form. So two instruments. If you have those conditions, you may identify something. So I want something, so if the price variation is only affected by the fact that the firm knows that you taste this product, will not be good for us, right? But if you are in a city where you have like 3 big stores, so they compete, for example. So in that sense, the price that you will get will be closer to the factory gate price, right?
You could directly measure entry or fixed
Yes, it's also a good point. Yeah. I can do this. 5 minutes, wow. Okay. So it's good because I'm going directly in the second step. So about the homogeneity. So we use the statas and then what we do with them. So we recover those estimates. So one for each type of good and for 2 different years. Okay. So again, is the remaining taste differences across departments. And we construct a bilateral taste distance. So this bilateral taste distance will be the absolute value of the difference between taste in Paris and taste in Marseille. Okay? And this will be our measure of taste distance. We use this bilateral taste distance and we regress this distance in taste on 2 types of fixed effects. So we use good times department times year fixed effect for both. It's not origin and destination, but for both departments, right? So this is important because in that case, you will capture difference in supply, for example. So if you have more big stores in one department and less in the others, this will be absorbed by the fixed effect. Quality differences, better quality in the north, lower in the south, this will be captured by the fixed effect, okay? Health campaigns, which are different, will be captured. Ads campaigns, also external migration will be captured by those fixed effects, okay? And then the remaining part will be bilateral. So we'll regress how far they are in terms of taste on the geographical distance, okay? And if there is homogenization, you expect that the distance has a lower effect today than 70 years ago. Okay, so Marseille and Paris have the same distance, but in terms of taste, they are closer today. Okay? We also use a nonlinear distance. We use trade, migration, and we construct a media exposure variable, which would be the probability of reading the same regional press in the two different departments. Okay, so let's start with the broad food category, so meats, for example. Okay, so this will be a simple graph plotting the standard deviation of those bilateral taste distance. And you see that in 74, so the variance is much bigger than today, okay? Except for grains and also prepared food. Otherwise, the variance is shrinking, okay? So the tastes are shrinking. And then we regress this bilateral taste distance on the contiguity. So if you see two departments are contiguous, and we find as expected a negative effect. Okay, so the fact that you are contiguous reduces the difference in taste, and the same for the reverse for the distance. The further apart you are, the more distant you are in terms of taste. But interestingly, this distance, it's much lower today. So there's a big drop in the estimate when you compare 74 to 2005. Okay, so the effect is much lower today. So the distance, the geographic distance has less impact. So if you increase the distance, people would be less distant in terms of taste than they were in the past. And this is controlling again for a bunch of fixed effects. You can say probably the distance is non-linear, and it is. So compared to close departments, the further apart they are, the bigger is the effect. But again, the effect is much higher in 2005 compared than in 1974, than in 2005. Okay, so much lower impact of the distance, of the tyranny of distance is much lower today. If you say, if you introduce trade on the top of the distance, again, you find this drop in the distance estimates in 5, and also trade. So the lower is your trade, the more distance you are, but this is less true in 2005. Okay. Again, we have internal migration. The less internal migration you have, the higher is your taste, but the effect is much lower in 2005. And also for the media exposure, we have the same consistent story. Okay. And last estimation is by type of products. So, for example, if we decompose our categories, so we look inside each category, you may think that fats is probably one where you will find very localized taste. So this is regressing the bilateral taste, the distance on the distance, on the geographic distance, controlling for the fixed effects. And indeed, fats are really localized. You still consume butter in the north, and you still consume olive oil in the south, controlling for prices and controlling for income and demographic variables. But again, the effect in 74 is much bigger than 2005, but still important in 5. For meats, which is probably not so clear that there is localized taste, distance matters, but also again, the effect is lower. Okay, so. Here we only, so as I didn't say, but we only keep the households where they consume at least 5 positive values in 5 goods out of the 9s. Okay? So here we aggregate enough to have less zeros than if you pick, for example, very tiny product. Okay? But still possible to have zeros. It is aggregated enough to avoid zeros. Okay, so to conclude, using French household data, we find strong localized taste, but homogenization over time. And this homogenization is not only due to price or income conversions. So we hope to convince you that France becomes flatter due to integration. Thank you.
One or two questions.
No, it's just I didn't understand exactly what you answered to André. So could it be that the diversity, the supply of varieties has increased over time, and thus now people in Marseille have access to butter that does not really taste like butter, and this is why they've increased their consumption of these goods. So the variety has increased due to globalization, decreasing transportation cost, and this is what is in your data, looking like convergence in tastes.
So it's so I think it's why we introduced those fixed effects. So even at the good level category, so because you have two, the broad category and the good level. So we will introduce. So if you think that you have a higher quality or higher availability in Marseille of butter in Zone 5, this will be absorbed by the fixed effects. Because it's at the department level, for the good and the particular year. So if you have an increase in availability of this type of goods in different locations, this will be absorbed by the fixed effects.
So actually, my question is also related. So let me put it slightly differently. So modulo this mean reversion issue, which I think you can deal with, you're showing that the residuals have converged.
Yes.
But economically, that could be for two reasons. Either because the choice sets of consumers have converged,
yes,
or because their tastes have converged. And I think right now it could be either or a combination of the two. But one thing you might be able to do is look at, Francis was mentioning there is data on the entrance of supermarkets. So you can think that supermarkets, essentially perhaps certain lines of supermarkets, have homogeneous choice sets across different locations. So then use that variation to see where the supermarkets enter, there is bigger convergence or not, so trying to sort of tease out how much of it is choice set convergence versus not. And the choice set convergence, of course, could then lead to endogenous tastes changing over time, but it could be a driver of that rather than, because at this level it could be just TV. You see the same things on TV and that's why you converge, but another possibility is that now you have, northern butter in the south and then they get used to that or something.
Yeah. Right, but so we were thinking about doing something about the availability and using this because we know where is the household, so we know also where there is a supermarket, and there is also this possibility of using an instrument of the supermarket because there is a regulation. But imagine that in one place, so for example in the north they are consuming butter and they have more stores selling butter, and not in the south. Why is not this captured by the fixed effects? So that's my.
Because those fixed effects are at the food level.
So it's food times the region level.
I understand, but the supermarket would be selling a lot of things, so it's many products, not just food.
Not just food, right?
Alcohol, it would be for grocery, it would be for cleaning products and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's a general increase in choice sets.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting experiment that took place between 1974 and 2005, which is the valorization of the bread prices. So that's one of the only thing that Tafaran did well. The rest is totally screwed up. And that had a huge impact on supply in terms of diversification, potentially the opening of new, the composition of bakers, the age composition of bakers, the supply of the entry of new bakeries and new. So, and I'm not sure, but my sense would be that bread was a more rural good
Yeah.
to start with. I'm trying to understand how it evolved, how it was in '74, and
No,
how
it's
it
just
evolved might be interesting. Playing potentially the same role as there's a very good book on that.
Okay.
The
So.
famous, I think, historian, American historian of the French Revolution,
Okay.
who wrote about cats, etc. I don't know if it's Sewell or something like that. Anyway, but there's a book on why the French bread is good. And
Okay.
Crazy Rafa. Crazy Rafa.
Yeah. So we also want to do this at the urban and versus rural divide, because it could be also that tastes are converging more for one group than the other. So it will be also something that we can explore. Thank you anyway. Yeah. So.
Can you identify households that moved regions at some point? So that used to live in a
Yeah,
region
so-
and then changed?
Unfortunately, it's every 5 years, so we cannot track them.
No retrospective
No,
questions
no.
on past.
So there are some questions about where were you living when you were 16 years old in one survey. But then it's each time they change the shift of the INSEE, they change questions. At one point, Francis is saying that probably people were more creative, so introducing interesting questions, and today. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.